Okay, think about this for a second. What if we could completely reinvent our power grid using the exact same ideas that built the internet? It sounds pretty wild, right? Well, that's the radical vision behind a project called Safer Grid. They're proposing exactly that, an internet for our energy. So let's dive right in and see what that's all about.
Now, this isn't just some crazy idea somebody cooked up. It's a really serious research initiative, and it's being led by four absolute heavyweights in their fields: Anton Monti, Frede Blobjerg, Frank Piller, and Klaus Worley. We're talking about a dream team with expertise in everything from power systems to computer science and innovation.
And they've got some serious muscle behind them, too. The project is backed by top-tier institutions like RWTH Aachen University, and, get this, it's funded by a super prestigious ERC Synergy grant. You know, these grants aren't just handed out. They're specifically for research that's kind of high risk, but has the potential for a massive, game-changing payoff. So yeah, this is a pretty big deal.
All right, so that leads to the obvious question, right? Why do we need such a radical solution in the first place? Well, it turns out our power grid, the one we rely on for everything, is being pushed to its absolute breaking point.
And you might be wondering, wait a minute, our power grid has been working just fine for over 100 years. Why is it suddenly having problems? And that's a great question. The thing is, it's not really about the grid being old. It's about the fact that the entire world it was designed for, well, that world just doesn't exist anymore.
See, the original grid was a masterpiece of engineering for its time. It was built for a handful of huge, centralized power plants, think coal or nuclear, that just chugged along, producing a perfectly predictable, stable amount of energy. Everything had to be in perfect sync, like a massive, countrywide machine. But today, we're in a totally new reality. We've got renewables like wind and solar popping up everywhere, and while that's great for the planet, they're not predictable. The sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing. This creates these wild swings in power that the old, rigid system just can't cope with. It's like trying to play jazz on a pipe organ. It just wasn't built for that kind of improvisation.
Okay, so that's the problem. And this is where we get to the really cool part, the solution. An internet for energy.
And to really get your head around this, we can look back at history. Remember the old telephone network? A giant, rigid system where you had to have a dedicated, physical line for every single call. It was a monolith, and eventually, it just couldn't keep up. The solution? A totally different approach. A flexible, packet-switching network of networks. You know it as the internet. The team behind Safer Grid is saying, hey, we can do that exact same thing for our power grid.
So what's the secret sauce here? The core idea is totally radical. Just give up on trying to keep the entire massive grid in perfect sync all the time. Instead, we break it up into much smaller, smarter, autonomous chunks. They call these agrids. So what exactly is an agrid? The best way to think about it is like a little self-sufficient energy island. It could be your neighborhood, maybe a big factory, or even just a city block. Each agrid is responsible for managing its own local energy, balancing what's being produced right there with what's being used. They're the basic building blocks for this whole new internet of energy.
Okay, so how does this whole system actually work? It's basically a four-step dance. First, you have the agrids we just talked about, those little autonomous networks. Then, you need a way for them to talk to each other. That's step 2, energy routers. Seriously, think of them just like your Wi-Fi router, but instead of data packets, they're routing packets of energy between the agrids that need it. Step 3 is what they call store and forward. If there's extra energy, these routers can aggregate it, forward it on, or, and this is key, tell a local battery or an EV to store it for later. And finally, the whole thing is coordinated by a decentralized communication layer. No single central brain, which means no single point of failure. It's brilliant.
Look, fixing grid stability is a huge deal, for sure, but that's not even the most exciting part of this story. The real game changer here is the massive economic and social opportunity this whole thing could unlock. We're talking about creating a totally new, open ecosystem for energy. Yeah, this quote from the researchers really nails it. They say, quote, "The new system could become a hotbed for user-driven innovation, driving a new open innovation ecosystem, similar to the rise of the internet economy in the 1990s. Think about that. They're not just fixing the grid. They think this could spark an economic boom, just like the one that gave us Google, Amazon, and everything else we use online today. It changes everything.
So what does that actually mean for you and me? Well, for starters, how about a flat-rate electricity bill, just like you pay for internet?
Or imagine your smart appliances, like your dishwasher, automatically knowing when energy is cheap and plentiful in your little A-grid and choosing to run then. If you own an electric vehicle, you could literally sell the power from your car battery back to the grid when prices are high. It would open the door for brand new marketplaces, energy delivery networks, and a whole wave of data-driven services we haven't even thought of yet.
At the end of the day, what this does is transform the grid from just a utility into a true platform. It opens the door for anyone, you, me, a kid in their garage, a new startup, to create apps and services on top of the energy grid, just like they did for the internet. It could unleash a wave of creativity that is just impossible to predict right now.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Where does this project actually stand today, and what's the big picture for the future?
So it's really important to manage expectations here. Safer Grid isn't something that's going to roll out next year. Right now, it's a bold, high-risk, high-reward research vision. Think of it this way. These scientists are drawing up the architectural blueprints for the energy system of the future. They're laying the foundation, but the skyscraper isn't built just yet.
And all of this leaves us with one massive, thought-provoking question. This vision isn't just about new technology. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about energy, from a top-down, centrally controlled utility to a decentralized, open network that we all participate in. The tech might be figured out eventually, but the real question is for us, are we ready for an Internet of Energy?